Have you ever looked at someone and thought you knew their whole story? What if you were wrong? Every day, people passed by Mr. Harold Briggs like he was part of the background. He was the janitor at Brookstone High, quiet older man with a slow walk and tired eyes. His gray uniform always had a stain or two. His hands were rough from years of cleaning floors, windows, and forgotten messes. He spoke very little, kept to himself, and always finished his work on time. Most students didn't even know his name. To them, he was just the janitor. But Harold had a purpose that day one, that no one around him could see. It was a cold Tuesday morning. The kind where the wind made your jacket feel thin and your breath came out like smoke. Students were hurrying into the school, holding their coffee cups and backpacks. Laughter echoed from the front steps. Inside, teachers were preparing for their first period. And in the middle of it all, Harold was walking toward the back alley behind the school. His focus stayed on the box. His hands moved gently, steadily, like someone who'd done this before. A few staff members watched from the back door, smiling at what they thought was just a strange old man doing something silly. He whispered softly, and the whimpering grew louder. To the world, it looked like an old man digging in the trash. To Harold, it was a call he couldn't ignore, a call that brought back years of training, years of memories. He didn't care who was watching. He didn't care about the laughter. There was fear in the animal's cry, but trust too. Why? Then, without saying a word, he turned and walked quickly toward the alley. He had served 2 tours overseas. He had trained dogs to sniff out bombs, track missing soldiers, and protect lives. And one of those dogs had made a sound just like this, just before saving a village from disaster. His movements were fast but careful. He scanned the area like someone trained to stay alert. His eyes locked on a torn-up cardboard box wedged between 2 trash bins. The sound was coming from inside. Because while emptying trash bins earlier, he'd heard something. A soft, broken whimper, low, shaky, and scared. They started laughing. One of them pulled out a phone and started filming. "What's the janitor doing? Trying to rescue a raccoon?" Another joked. The laughter spread quickly. Few even opened the window to shout. One he had trained dogs to make back in another life. A life most people at this school had no idea existed. At first, he thought it was his imagination, but then he heard it again, a sound he hadn't heard in years but could never forget. It sounded like a dog. It's not just any bark, but a very specific cry, a distress signal. Harold paused for a moment. He knelt down slowly and reached forward. Behind him, a group of students near the window saw him crawling through the trash. But Harold didn't respond. The students kept laughing. One teacher shook their head and walked away. But Harold knew exactly what he was doing. His objective was simple. Help whoever or whatever was crying for help, cared about saving something, or someone. Because even if no one knew it, Harold Briggs was once a military dog handler. So when Harold heard that whimper, he didn't see trash, he saw a mission. And like every mission he'd faced before, he wouldn't walk away until it was done. It should have been simple, one man helping an injured animal. But life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone while others laugh. As Harold reached deeper into the box, the barking grew weaker. The poor creature was hurt, cold, shaking. Its fur was matted with dirt and blood. A piece of cloth clung to its side, barely readable. But Harold's eyes caught something. Faded letters, torn fabric, something official, something that didn't belong in a back alley trash pile. He leaned in closer. That's when the back door of the school swung open. 2 security guards stepped outside, followed by a young assistant principal. She looked annoyed, holding her clipboard like it was a shield. "There's something alive in here," he said calmly. "You'll get bit. Come on, let's get you cleaned up." "Sir, what are you doing?" she asked, loud enough for everyone watching to hear. "He's lost it," one said. "Janitor's playing animal rescue now," another added. One girl zoomed in on her phone and muttered, "Ew, look at that thing. What even is that?" The sight of an old janitor giving orders to school staff felt ridiculous to them. Even the assistant principal smirked. "Sir, I think you need to take a break." Harold didn't look up. The guards exchanged looks. One chuckled. "It's probably just a stray." "Sir, if you don't move away, we'll have to call animal control." Harold shook his head. "No, this isn't just a stray." And right now, his gut told him something serious was hiding inside that box. Some began to feel uneasy. Why wasn't he walking away? Why wasn't he embarrassed? By now, more students had gathered near the back window. Some recorded with their phones. Some laughed. Covered in mud, blood, and tangled fur. But clinging to its side was a half-ripped military service vest. Inside the box, the creature let out a soft, broken growl. Harold finally spoke louder. Nobody touch it. I need a towel, a flashlight, and some space. The assistant principal stepped closer. Excuse me? Stood up, gently but firmly. And the real battle isn't between people. It's between what the world sees and what's really there. The crowd grew silent for a second, then burst into laughter again. But Harold wasn't backing down. His years of following orders, surviving war zones, and saving lives had taught him one thing. Trust your gut. Still, he didn't yell. He didn't explain. He turned back to the box. That's when one of the security guards stepped forward. I've already seen more danger than you'll ever know, Harold replied, still calm. Just give me 1 minute. Conflict was growing not just between Harold and the people around him, but inside the hearts of the crowd. And why did his voice sound so steady? Still the laughter continued. Until Harold pulled out the animal, cradled gently in his arms. It looked more like a shadow than a dog. They were too busy watching a janitor holding what looked like a dying animal. They still thought it was a joke. But that was about to change because conflict isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, trapped in misunderstanding, covered in mockery. Harold didn't need to win an argument. He just needed to let the truth speak for itself, and soon it would. The air had grown heavy. The laughter, once loud and easy, now felt forced. Something about Harold's stillness, his quiet focus, was changing the atmosphere. But the obstacles weren't done. The vest was real, torn, mud-stained. Faded words across the side read, "Service animal, do not pet." One tag was missing, and the second was hanging by a single thread. As Harold gently held the injured animal in his arms, he scanned its fur again, her tone sharper now. "Mr. Briggs, you can't carry animals inside the school. Please put it down or take it outside the campus." Harold's hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but with memory who it had been, not to break rules, but to find a towel and warm space for the dog. He knew what this dog was, and more importantly, but before he could speak, the assistant principal stepped forward again. Not in anger, not in challenge, just steady calm. "You don't know what this is?" he said quietly. Harold didn't answer. Kept walking slowly toward the back hallway that led to the nurse's office. Let them lock the dog in a cage and forget it ever happened. One of the security guards stepped in front of him. "You need to stop now. We'll handle it from here." The kind that sometimes makes people ignore what's right in front of them. The kind that forgets heroes don't always wear badges or clean clothes. Harold's eyes met his. "I know it's dirty and dangerous," the guard replied, taking out his radio. Harold paused. This was the moment. He could let them take over, let them call animal control, or he could do what he was trained to do. The obstacle wasn't just a person. It was doubt, authority, procedure. He tightened his grip gently on the dog and said, "Call the number on that vest." The guard squinted. "What? Call it." The assistant principal looked over his shoulder. "What number?" "Right there, stitched on the inside flap." She stepped forward and reached out. The fabric was torn, but just readable. She pulled out her phone and dialed. On speaker, one ring. Pushed him to the edge of giving up. Blocked him with people who didn't know what he knew, who couldn't see what he saw. 2. Then a voice. "Military K-9 Recovery Unit. This is Officer Talbot, with purpose." Everyone froze. The woman looked at Harold. I found a vest. It's with your number." Talbot's voice changed instantly. "Where is the dog alive?" she stuttered. "Yes, it's hurt, but it's here. At Brookstone High." A pause then. "We've been looking for her for months. Don't move. We're on our way." Suddenly, the rules didn't matter anymore. The joke stopped. Duh. The phones went down. But the obstacle had already done its job. It had tested Harold's resolve. Still he stayed calm, quiet, steady, because real heroes don't need to shout to be heard. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He acted. Gently, bravely. The dog whimpered softly in his arms, no longer afraid, just tired. And for the first time, people started seeing Harold not as the janitor. but is something else entirely. What if the person everyone ignores turns out to be the one who saves the day? If this moment moved you, stay with us, because what happens next will leave you speechless and make you think twice before judging someone by their uniform. Leave a comment if you believe true heroes don't always wear badges. Subscribe for more silent valor stories. Real courage told with quiet dignity. The story isn't over yet. In the next few minutes, truth will walk through those school doors. The world often forgets that the most powerful stories don't begin with explosions or headlines. They begin in silence, in quiet corners, in the spaces where no one is watching, and that's where this story begins. At a public high school, early on a cold weekday morning, the janitor, Mr. Harold Briggs, was doing his daily rounds. Trash bins, lockers, hallways, no applause, no thanks, just quiet footsteps echoing against tile floors. Most of the students didn't know his name. Some didn't even notice he existed. And on that particular day, he noticed a low, desperate whimper coming from the alley near the dumpsters. But Harold noticed things others missed. He noticed a broken window before anyone reported it. He noticed when the lunchroom lights flickered. It had been easy to ignore. Most people would have. He leaned closer and heard it again, a familiar cry, one he hadn't heard in years, a cry that brought back a flood of memories he thought he had buried long ago. But Harold wasn't like most people. He turned, stepped outside into the cold, and followed the sound to a battered cardboard box behind the bins. Something moved inside. Harold reached inside, and that single decision changed everything. This is the story of a man the world overlooked, a dog the world forgot, and a truth that brought a whole school to tears. It's a story about judgment and what happens when people laugh too soon. A story about service, sacrifice, and silent courage. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it doesn't scream to be noticed, but it will stay with you. Because sometimes what looks like a janitor saving a stray dog is really a soldier returning to duty one last time. The back hallway of the school had never been this quiet. Harold stood there, holding the injured dog in his arms. The laughter had stopped, the judgment faded, and now something else filled the air. Curiosity, unease, regret. But the tension wasn't gone yet. The assistant principal still looked confused, her phone shaking slightly in her hand. The security guard stood nearby, watching Harold like he didn't quite know what to do. And students at the window whispered in confusion. Was this really happening? It was. Somehow it recognized him more, at least his touch. He gently knelt down on a folded jacket someone had offered, laying the dog down softly. He placed a towel over its back and whispered a name only the dog would know. The dog let out a low whimper. Its eyes, tired and weak, looked up at Harold. Echo. Its ears twitched. That was all Harold needed. The tension reached its peak when a black SUV pulled up near the school's back entrance. A second one followed. Military plates, no markings. Within seconds, 2 uniformed officers stepped out, rushing toward the building with determined faces and calm urgency. She's a bomb detection K9. She saved over 50 lives in her last mission. They didn't ask questions. They didn't hesitate. One of them, Officer Talbot, locked eyes with the assistant principal and said one sentence that changed everything. We're here for the dog. She blinked. You mean? Yes, he said, kneeling beside the animal. This is Echo. She went missing during a training op, months ago. Silence. Students, staff, even the guards stood frozen. The same people who had laughed now couldn't speak. Talbot turned to Harold. You found her. He's a former Army K9 handler and a decorated veteran. You've handled a dog like this before, haven't you? Harold nodded once. When we lost 2 men in Helmand, Talbot studied his face and said quietly, Sir? Harold looked down at Echo and gently scratched behind her ear. She made the same sound my last dog made. Talbot took a breath. Were you Army? Harold didn't answer. He didn't need to. The patch of an old tattoo on his wrist peeked out from under his sleeve, a symbol only a few would recognize. Talbot did. He stood up straight, turned to the others, and said with full clarity, Ladies and gentlemen, this man is not just your janitor. You could have heard a pin drop. And then, as if the air itself shifted, something beautiful happened. One student at the back of the hallway started clapping, then another, then more. Soon the whole hall echoed not with laughter, but with applause. It wasn't loud, it wasn't wild, it was slow, respectful, real. The assistant principal stepped forward, clearly shaken. "Mr. Briggs, I didn't know." Harold nodded once. "That's okay. Most people don't." And that's how it ended. Not with anger, and not with punishment, but with understanding. The janitor they ignored became the man they honored. The dirty, broken dog became a hero returned home. And everyone who had laughed learned something they'd never forget. That day, the tension between image and truth, between judgment and respect, was resolved by action. Quiet action, brave action, by a man who never needed to prove himself. It proved everything with the way he carried himself. Oh, and the way he carried her. Sometimes we think we know who a person is just by looking at them. Their job, their clothes, their silence. We assume their story because we don't take the time to listen. Nothing more. He swept floors, emptied trash, and mopped up spills. No one asked where he came from. No one asked what he had done before he put on the gray uniform. They didn't know about the medals he once received. They didn't know about the lives he helped save. They didn't know about the war, the sacrifice, or the heartbreak he still carried quietly in his chest. That's the world Harold Briggs lived in every day. To the outside world, he was just a janitor. And Harold never told them. That's the theme of this story. True service doesn't shout. Real strength doesn't seek attention. People judged Harold by his uniform, not realizing he once wore another one that came with danger, sacrifice, and a sense of duty that never left him. The story isn't about a dog being rescued. It's not even about a school learning a lesson. It's about how often we forget that courage can look ordinary, and how easy it is to miss heroes standing right in front of us. He didn't step into the alley to impress students or prove a point. He moved because of who he was, because his instincts, his training, his heart, told him something needed help. And to recognize those who served beside him, even if they had 4 legs and a wagging tail, Harold didn't act for praise. How laughter comes easy when someone looks out of place. How fast that laughter fades when truth stands in its place. And the world laughed. Harold's mission didn't, in the way he moved toward the sound, not away from it. In the way he held the dog, even while others laughed. Sometimes the people we ignore are the ones who still wake up every morning with a mission in their hearts. Until they saw the truth. That's what makes this a silent valor story. A moment when one man chose to listen to a sound no one else heard, and act when no one else would. The courage was never loud. It didn't need a speech. It didn't need a camera. It just needed a moment. The story also reminds us that judgment is easy when you know someone has passed. Even after the war ended, it lived in his bones, in the way he paid attention. This story carries another powerful message. Compassion doesn't retire. Harold had long left the battlefield, but his heart was still wired to protect. To serve, the theme also reaches those watching from the outside. The students, staff, and guards. They represent how quickly we assume. And finally, the theme stretches to you as those hearing this story. It asks, how many Harolds walk past us every day? How many nobodies carry stories we'll never hear? How many heroes are hiding in plain sight? It reminds us that the world is full of quiet strength. To do what's right, to help, to serve, to save. Not for attention, not for applause, but because that's just who they are. A story is only powerful when all its pieces come together. When every part supports the heart of the message. In this story, that message was silent strength, forgotten service, and the danger of quick judgment. Every moment from the first laugh to the final applause was connected by one thread. Truth revealed through action. At the beginning, Harold was alone. The hallway, the alley, the mop in his hand. None of it looked heroic. But inside him, the mission had never ended. That's what connected his past and present. A janitor doing his daily job in the shadows. It wasn't visible to those around him. But when the moment came, his training and instincts resurfaced. The man who once walked with K-9 units through enemy territory was now walking behind a school building to rescue a dog. One decision led to another. Each action revealed a part of the truth that had been hidden in plain sight. The moment he heard the soft cry from the trash alley, the story began to unfold like a chain. A living bridge between what Harold used to do and who he had become. She wasn't just a dog, she was a memory brought to life. a reminder of service, loyalty, and loss. A fellow soldier who couldn't speak but still called out for help in the only way she knew. The world that didn't understand. But over time, as truth revealed itself, their roles shifted. And just like that, unity formed between past and present. Harold's military past wasn't something he bragged about. 2 worlds war and peace came together. 2 uniforms, army and janitor, stood side by side. That's unity. The phone call to the K-9 recovery unit created a bridge between the quiet school and a wider truth of military. The mission, the honor that stretched beyond that building, even the dog/represented unity, and Harold answered. That bond, once shared in battle, now reappeared in a back alley. And just like before, he didn't hesitate. And the school, the students, the guards, they were part of the story too. At first they served as the opposite. The crowd that laughed, same students who laughed later clapped. Even the dog's broken vest symbolized it, torn but still readable. Every laugh, every stare, every silent decision, built toward one purpose, faded but still real, just like Harold himself. The same security who blocked his path stood back in silence. The same principal who questioned him dialed the number that confirmed everything might humble us tomorrow. It's emotional and narrative unity. Everyone in the story experienced a change, but it all stemmed from one man doing the right thing, without asking for anything in return. Even the outside world played a role. When the officers arrived, the pieces locked into place. No more guessing, no more jokes, just understanding. The beauty of unity in this story is how every element supports the core theme. From the faint cry behind the trash to the military SUV pulling into the school, every event was part of one story, one truth waiting to be seen. In storytelling, unity means nothing feels out of place. And here, not a single detail was wasted. To show the world what quiet heroism looks like, to remind us that what we laugh at today, and most of all, to bring together past and present, pride and humility. Strength and kindness in one unforgettable moment of unity.